Tonight we're looking at a decade's worth of ITT Mackay Marine shortwave receivers. All three of these were made in Raleigh, North Carolina, a little down, just up the road from where I was raised in North Carolina. So basically, what these are on the bottom we have the 3020A, which was a 1970s, made between 71 and 77. This one was made in 1975. The middle one is a 3030A, which is the next version of that. It was this, and this one was. These were made between 78 and 88, and this one was made in 1981. And the one on the top is the newer of the three. It was made in, it's a 3041A. I'm going to talk about some of the differences in the 3040s, 3041s, and other models numbers in a second. That one was made in 1985. So these are all within 10 years, and they are very similar in a lot of ways, but have some significant differences. These were made for the marine market primarily, marine diplomatic. The top one up there, according to Fred Osterman's book, most of them were made actually for the diplomatic or even USIA for Voice of America monitoring stations and that kind of thing. Obviously, the bottom two are mainstays in a lot of ships' radio rooms over the, from the early 70s through the mid 80s, probably a little bit later on, but they were produced just during that time. So while these aren't that far apart in production, they have some unique features on each one of them. The filtration, I'll just kind of go through on the one down at the bottom here. You have bandwidths up front, 400 hertz, 1 kilohertz, 2 kilohertz, and 8 kilohertz. And then you have the modes, AM, CW or Morse code, USB, and LSB. Those are single sideband either side. You have a pre-selector, and this is kind of a similar thing on all three of them, where this is actually anything from, this is from primarily for broadcast band and for low band. We're talking, below AM radio bands, if you know what radio is these days. There's a fine tuning control in the middle, and then you have you can divide it so you can isolate the segment of the frequency you're trying to get on. Basically, anything above, for shortwave, they generally recommend just put it in wideband, which is a bypass of it, sort of. So you can do a little bit with that, but it actually provides you a little more flexibility. There's a variable CW pitch here, which is a fine tuning for CW mode, which comes in handy for trying to bring out, it's handy, it's a fine tuning device. And then you have automatic gain, which I've found to be not as useful unless you're using pre-selector. Then you want to use this. Otherwise, I just leave it turned off, and that has a fast or slow AG automatic gain control. We're going to be using manual control when we're tuning here tonight. We have the meter. This tells you what kind of signal, RF or AF, this is measuring. Then you have an attenuator, which basically cuts down about 20 dB off your signal, which if you're in a strong signal environment, that's useful. Otherwise, most of the time, it's just out. You have the power on-off switch, and actually the gain, AF gain, which is it's the volume knob. And then you have a clarifier for voice modes like AM, where you can pull this out and actually kind of tweak it so that the voice gets clearer, the pitch a little bit, so it becomes more intelligible. And up here we have one of the key differentiators between the two different types of tuning that these Mackays had. One was called step tuning, which I'll look at it as, these are basically decade switches where you can change them like that, and they just have different types, different frequencies you enter into your digits there. And these go all the way down to, I think, 100 hertz on this one, 100 kilohertz on this one. This one go down to 10 kilohertz, so that's in modern. It's got a little more fine tuning. And once again, the controls on this are very similar. You can see, only difference here is instead of having the mode switches and that kind of thing, these here, you have a rotary, which is what they moved to for the later ones. And that has a several Morse code modes, which are all useful. It only has USB. It does not have LSB, and it has a RIDI. This one has the RIDI filter installed, so that's if you were doing digital modes, that would be what you want to do. The reason it doesn't have LSB like the one down here and the one up here is that during the time it was made, most marine ship shore traffic, that kind of thing, was all USB. So there wasn't much of a call for a specific LSB mode. They just didn't include it. You can kind of approximate it and get something of it if you put it in CW variable, which means you can tune it and use this, the VFO to actually slew it down so you can actually hear it. But it really is not it's a difference between this sound, that's down here, and if I go to this one, same station, and that's the best I could get tuning out of that. So it may just be me, maybe a tuning problem from my standpoint, but that's the best voice I could get with it. You hear it's kind of not very clear, but you can hear it down there. And if you hear it up here on the top one, it has LSB as well. So you can see how that makes a difference, clarifying for lower sideband. Now, the big, like I say, two different. There were model. What we have up on top here has digital display, and you think, well, that's more modern. It was the newer machine, but there is a version. This is the 3041A. There's a 3040A that they made, which has the same decadic, eyelash kind of, flipping the eyelashes to get your numbers on there to get tuned it just as well. This are what they call, each one of these models had one of these, and it had one of these built. So the 3030A, which is the middle one, it had a 3031 that had the LED display and the tuning knob and all that kind of good stuff. And the bottom one, that is a 2020 or 3020A. It had a 3021A, which had the same type of tuning. It was just an option. You could go, when you bought it, do one or the other. So, what's your pleasure? I don't know. I think in many ways, this is actually faster to get to a specific frequency if you're trying to get to it, versus having to tune all through, having to go through here and mess with tuning rates and that kind of thing. So, it's just a matter of preference. This is a more modern system, what we normally think of with radios. But then again, this is actually pretty efficient too. And you can actually, you can tune within a range, because you have, those steps will hear. We'll hear this. Let's see. Let's see if we can try to. See, that might actually get a little bit clearer, but if we do this. So you can hear, you can kind of make a difference. All right, anyway, so those are the basic controls on these. These are fairly uncommon these days. This particular radio came out of the FCC monitoring office in Kansas City. It actually came in as 3 or 4 different sets. I can't remember how many, but I basically had to part it together to get one that ran. Since it's that old and had seen continuous service for decades, it was pretty worn out. So it had a good power supply in that somebody had modified, and I was able to kind of put different parts and replace the parts that were bad out of other ones, and so they got it back up and running. This one came in just like it is. It's actually in pretty decent shape. And of course, this one came in near pristine shape. So it's actually in very good shape. So has not seen the daily use that say the bottom one has, for sure. So anyway, just to let you know, one of the things that these radios are known for is their low frequency signals. Like if I wanted to go down here, I think I've done my, I'm going to pull my inner Nick here, Nick Bortis, and do a Let's see, put it away. There we go. Okay, and I'm going to put this on AM, I think. Actually, I'm going to put it on CW. And flip it over. This is a non-directional beacon. This one's out of McAllen, Texas, actually, and I'm in Maryland, so it's 25 watts, and you can hear it that far away. And all you're going to hear is a Morse code doing this, basically a two-letter. It's identifier for aeronautical, and basically, so you can actually tell where you are based on flight patterns and stuff like that. So you can actually, smaller planes can actually just use that to track themselves. So that's one. There are other stations we might have, like say, let me see. If I want to go to, let's see, here's an example of how you use, I'm going to do this, send this to an AM radio station. That's one of my go-tos. So I'm going to put it in wide. I'm going to put it on AM mode. And then I'm going to fly.
What they needed to do.
And slow. Okay, and this goes on. So you see how that took that long, and you get the AM radio station, and it sounds pretty good. Sounds pretty good. Okay, it does a good job. If I'm going to use this one, swap over to it. To do the same thing, I just go zero that out. Go to 7, 4, and I would go to wide, and I would go to AM.
You know what I want? That little girl you had here a half an hour ago. Jeannie Parker.
If I wanted to clarify the speech.
I have room too. Okay. Holiday.
Doesn't seem to make that much of a difference. One of the things you'll notice with these radios, all three of these radios, but particularly the bottom one, there's a lot of treble in the audio signal. That can make speech much more intelligible, but there is a price to pay, since these are wide filters. These are 8 kilohertz filters in the wide position. Lets a lot of other noise in there too, so you get a lot of static and hiss and things in the background that you might hear that you might not hear on some other more modern receivers that are actually have more filters widths and that kind of thing. So if we're going to do this one same way, and I'm not going to do this for a lot of different stations, but this is just okay, 7, and we go to AM. This is Toronto, Zoomer radio, my nightly old time radio broadcast. But you notice there's a lot of hiss in that you won't get in the middle one. Okay, we get some fade because it's still early in the evening for that station. And if we go there and we do the okay, wide. Yeah, somehow it just dropped out. So our station's going away. But anyway, so that's kind of what we're talking about when we talk about these 2 radios. It's very seldom you ever see that the 3 generations like this stacked together. They are the one thing that, like I say, it's not just the 3030A, but the 3031 that has the digital. It doesn't have LSB as well. That's the big differentiator on these, I think, from a usefulness standpoint. Other than that, I think that's how these radios work. If you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to put them in the comments or shoot me an email or whatever it happened to you. I'm on Facebook, so on my Facebook page as well. So anyway, just as these are ITT Mackay Marine 3020A 3030A, 3041A. 3 successive models, all made in good old North Carolina, 20 miles from where I grew up. And yeah, anyway, it's good to, they have since, they got bought out by Thompson CSF, a French company, and I think they kind of have, they've stopped production of these particular models, certainly, and I think they may have some other ones, but it's I don't think they've seen a lot out of them since the late 90s, since they merged with Thompson. Anyway, so that's pretty much what we're talking about here tonight. I hope you've enjoyed this. Let me know if there's any other suggestions of things that you would like to see, and we'll try to make a video on that too. Thanks, and talk to you later. Bye.